How you doing, YouTube? This is MTX86 again, and this is episode 6, How to Ride a Motorcycle for Beginners. So far, we're already on the bike. The bike's really dirty, by the way. We're now on the bike. We're getting into the fun stuff, so we're dressed. We've got our Power Ranger outfit on. We know what the bike does. We know how to do it, so we know all the controls. We know how to get into first gear. We know how to get the bike moving. We know how to get into second gear and so on, and all the shifting. So at this point, we should be comfortable keeping the bike upright, maintaining balance on it, getting to know how to maneuver it, feeling more comfortable doing that. And we're getting ready to hit the streets. And the first thing we need to know before we do that, the last thing we need to know before we do that, is how to stop. Okay, so, at first when you hear how to stop the bike, get it started here, it sounds pretty simple. Well, you just hit the brakes, right? And ultimately, yeah, I guess you can think of it that simple. First of all, you need to remember where the brakes are. So this lever here on the right side, that's going to be your front brake. On the right hand side for the foot, like your foot lever, that's going to be your back brake. So we do control those independently. And then we do have another alternate. Those two combined make up for wheel braking, which is your standard braking. And there's an alternate option that you can use from time to time, well, quite often, but when the time is right, we'll say. And that's called engine braking. We'll talk about that in a minute. So your standard wheel braking. If you look online, you can find a bunch of different numbers or ratios that are given as to what the mix is between the front and the rear brake to make up your total 100% braking, we'll call it. What I'm going to say, again, it's debatable, but we'll just say, for lack of argument, we'll say 70% front, 30% back. So the front brake does play a larger role in stopping the bike. It's more effective in stopping the bike. It's going to get you out of sticky situations a lot quicker. However, having said that, it can get you into sticky situations as well. Because keep in mind, on a bike, it's a lot easier to lock your tires than it is on a car because you're a lot lighter. Your tires are typically thinner, so there's less friction, which makes it easier to just lock up. So, luckily, I don't have that issue because this bike, as you can see by that orange light, it has ABS on it, similar to a car anti-lock braking system, so it won't lock up on me. However, you want to try to minimize your use of that so you can learn proper braking techniques. So you want to use, we'll get into the theory before we practice it. You want to use your front and your rear brake simultaneously as much as possible. You don't want to just use the front or just use the back. You're not going to have a comfortable stop at that point. You can get into a little bit of trouble. You're more apt to skid a tire, and your stop won't be nearly as effective as it would have been, like I said, missing either the 70 or the 30%. Okay, so there are cases sometimes where if you just want to slow down a little bit, you can just kind of ride the back brake a bit. Whatever works, you'll get comfortable with it. So keep in mind both these levers. This lever and the foot brake will activate the brake light at the rear. So you don't necessarily have to worry about that when using those two. So again, you want to use both around the same time, and you can kind of just play with the pressure that you're applying to make yourself stop at a particular point. This is going to be your primary source of braking. So in any case where you have to stop quickly, emergency stops, or anything like that, you want to use your wheel brakes first. Okay. The other option being engine braking. Again, we'll consider that an alternative to wheel braking, not a replacement, because it's not as effective. It won't stop you in a hurry or anything like that. Okay, so we'll practice the regular braking first. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to gain a little bit of momentum, and then I'll do a nice controlled stop without going into a skid. I'll turn around and do the same thing back, but I'll try to engage my ABS so you can see the difference. Luckily, it won't put me into a skid, so you can see the benefit of ABS at the same time. And we'll go from there. From there, we'll turn around, and I'll show you the exact same thing, but using engine braking instead. Sound good? Let's do this. Okay, so that was a nice controlled stop using both my front and my rear brake. Again, the ABS did not engage there. You can kind of feel and gain control of the brakes while you're doing it. And again, you get to know your bike just like anything else. Here, we'll back up a little bit. So we'll see if we can use the ABS this time. Now, another thing to note, when you're applying the brakes, you always want to kind of hold in the clutch so the bike doesn't stall out on you. Now, in a case of emergency, don't worry about anything but stopping the bike. But holding in the clutch will become second nature, so that you can gear down accordingly, right? Because obviously, if you're stopped, you're going to want to go down to first. If you're slowing down but you don't come to a complete stop, you might want to shift into second instead. Let's try an ABS run. Well, I better use my ABS or I'm going to hit that car. They won't like that. Yeah. Okay, so I stopped really quick. I wanted to keep a safe distance from that car. The ABS definitely kicked in there. It went click, 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 and slowed me down. That's the benefits of ABS. Like without it, we definitely would have went into a skid there. So, as you can see, I was able to stop really fast. You won't do that with engine braking. I'll show you the difference. Let's go over here and turn around. Okay, so this time, we'll back up a bit again. This time I'm going to gear up to about, maybe second or third gear. Now with engine braking, we spoke briefly about it in episode 5, but engine braking, you're using the friction of the engine to slow you down. You don't touch the brakes at all. So like I said, when you release the throttle, your RPMs will start to decline. And that's, again, simply based on friction. And when your RPMs go down, so does your speed. So it's an easy way to control your speed, but again, you're going to use this when you're comfortable using it, and when you have enough notice that you have to stop, right? If you see a stop sign at a distance, or you see traffic start to slow down at a distance, that's when you're going to use engine braking, not in any case where you have to stop suddenly or anything like that. And that's why this is an alternative, not a replacement. Okay, so I'll show you what that does. So to do that, what you're going to do is you're going to, like once we're accelerated, you let off the throttle, the bike will start to slow down automatically. Now, to slow down more and to prevent stalling, you hold in the clutch, you'll shift down and slowly let off the clutch. Your RPMs will go up then because you're in a lower gear, and they'll start to decline again and again and again. Important to note, engine braking won't bring you to a complete stop. It'll slow you down. You can eventually get it to a crawl, but you will have to use your wheel brakes to bring you to a complete stop. Hey folks, sorry, my audio must have got interrupted there. So we'll pick up where we left off, and that is in talking about engine braking, and a couple of things that we should keep in mind before we get into it. So first and foremost, you got to keep in mind, while engine braking can be very effective and can slow you down pretty quick, it doesn't activate your rear brake light. Okay, so you got to keep your eye on the mirror, and you always should anyway, but you need to know what's going on behind you so that you don't get into trouble. And like I said, there's a time and a place for engine braking. Having said that, a good best practice to do while engine braking is to either ride your rear brake slightly to activate your brake light, or your front brake. You can typically push in just a little bit till you hear it click, and the front brakes aren't yet applied. Like, I can still move the bike, no problems, but my brake light's actually activated. So that's normally the route I choose when I'm engine braking. I'll lightly go on the front brake to engage the brake light while I'm slowing down using the engine and not my front tire. So that's number one. Number two is engine RPM matching. So you want to try to match up the RPMs as best as possible while you're gearing down, so that your back tire doesn't go into a skid once again. So if I'm going 120 kilometers an hour, let's say, down the highway, and I see traffic starting to slow down, as opposed to just dropping it into fifth, letting go of the clutch and hoping for the best, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in the clutch, gear down to fifth, And as I'm letting off the clutch, I'm going to slowly bring the throttle on. Slowly roll on the throttle. So let's say when I clutched in, I was at 8,000 RPM. When I clutch out, I'm going to try to be in and around 8,000 RPMs once again. But keep in mind, 8,000 RPMs from 6th and 8,000 RPMs in 5th. We're obviously slowing down and making progress. And I'll continue to do that. So at that point, I'm now in 5th gear at 8,000 RPM. Let off the throttle again, let it drop to, let's say, 6,000. Gear down, match your RPMs to 6,000 when you come off the clutch. And now you're at 6,000 in 4th gear, and 4,000 in 3rd gear, etc., etc., etc. So you can go from there to get the bike to slow down, and again, that will prevent you from going into any skids. There are bikes, this being one of them, that have what's called a slipper clutch, which will prevent that from happening. So if you gear down twice instead of once, or if you let your RPMs jump all over the place, the slipper clutch will prevent the wheel from locking up. So that's one thing to keep in mind. The other thing is the proper time to brake. There is a time and a place for it. You don't want to brake while you're going into a turn. You want to get your braking done and out of the way before you enter a turn, so that you don't lock up any tires, because you do have reduced friction there as well as on wet pavement. Obviously, wet pavement has less friction. It's very easy to lock up a tire on that. So you want to keep your 70-30 mix into play. Brake smart, not hard, and use engine braking wherever possible on wet pavement. Sound good? All right, let's do a couple engine brakes. So I'll accelerate. I'll get into 3rd or 4th gear, depends how much room I have, and I'll downshift, and we'll see how far I can go without actually touching the wheel brake. All right, let's do it. Okay, so now I'm rolling. I didn't even touch the brakes there. Like I said, the engine brake won't bring you to a complete stop. You will have to use your wheel brakes at some point, but it did pretty damn good. Back up, we'll do it one more time. These cagers got in the way after my audio went out the first time. See, like I said, they're ignorant as to what's going on around them. All of them. Even me when I drive my car. Okay, so again, that was without touching the actual brakes. Sorry, the wheel brakes. That was all engine braking right there. Like I said, there's a time and a place for it, but it works very effectively. Alright? I just let the bike stall. I'm too busy talking and not focusing. I just let off the clutch in 1st gear. You sure you want to learn from me? Come on, guys. I'm kidding. Stay tuned for episode 7.